Good day again. Continuing human geography, the Alpine countries, looking now at Austria. Austria is immediately to the east of Switzerland, and it is another country that is almost entirely inside the Alps. The capital of Austria is Vienna. I'm sure you've heard of Vienna, if only in the form of Vienna sausages and the like. But Vienna is the capital of culture. The music tradition of Vienna is superb. Mozart, Beethoven, both composed some of their greatest works and performed them in Vienna. Strauss waltzes, you may have heard, da 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 da. As the Blue Danube Waltz commemorates the Danube River that flows along the northern boundary of Austria and next to Vienna. Austria, as I said, is a heavily mountainous country. Again, tourism, alpine sports skiing, a big part of the economy of Austria. It is a prosperous nation, a very strong cultural heritage. The history of Austria is an interesting one because the Austrians, the Habsburg dynasty, ruled the Austrian Empire for centuries, and they built a true empire. The modern-day country of Austria is just a tiny, tiny remnant of what once stretched all the way down through the Balkans, all the way down to near Greece, and included also the Kingdom of Hungary was part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and what's now Czechoslovakia, or the Czech Republic and Slovakia. So you had, at one point in time, a vast multi-ethnic empire. Oh, and I should say a decent chunk of northern Italy was part of the same empire. So from Vienna, Czechs, Slovakians, Slovenians, Bosnians, Croats, some Serbs, Italians, all were ruled by the German-speaking people of Austria, the Habsburg dynasty in Vienna. Now, that multi-ethnic empire left its mark. Vienna especially still has this multi-ethnic quality to it. But you will recall that in 1918, when World War I ended, Austria was on the losing side of that war. And in 1919, in a treaty parallel to the Treaty of Versailles, it wasn't actually the Treaty of Versailles itself, Austria-Hungary was broken to pieces. And the various components of the Austro-Hungarian Empire were given their independence. So you got an independent Czechoslovakia. There was a brand new kingdom of Yugoslavia created out of a merger of Serbia with the Slavic portions of the old Austro-Hungarian Empire. Hungary became an independent country. And when it was all said and done, what was left of Austria was just the mountainous Alpine portion. Now that held together well because it was the German-speaking part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. So the people of Austria are German speakers. They speak Süddeutsch, like the southern portion, like the portion of Switzerland that speaks German. The same dialect of German is spoken in Austria. It is a country with, as I said, the mountains, and forestry is an important part of the economy of Austria today. In its history, Austria has functioned in a way as a kind of a bridge between Western Europe and Eastern Europe. When it was the Austro-Hungarian Empire, it was a mix of Germanic peoples and Slavic peoples. And because of that, during the Cold War, that long struggle from 1945 to 1991 between the United States and our allies in Western Europe, and the Soviets and their allies, their subservient states in Eastern Europe, Austria was often a sort of go-between. So if you're ever watching spy movies from the Cold War, I'm betting Vienna makes an appearance at some point because it was the kind of crossroads between East and West, a place where the Iron Curtain had a little bit of a permeability to it. But today, Austria is a democratic country. They do have a right-wing party there, which does perform modestly well in elections, but nobody wants to be part of a government with them if they can possibly help it. So with one brief exception, they've never held any real power in Austria. But don't forget, there were enough Austrian Nazis to make Hitler's takeover of Austria work in 1938. So, they do have a past like Germany with right-wing extremism, which they now mostly try to live down. But a few Austrians are still a little bit enthusiastic about it, I guess we'd say. But again, it's a democracy today with the civil liberties you'd expect. So that's Austria. So you had Switzerland as one great Alpine country. Austria is the other. In between them is a little country, a tiny little country called Liechtenstein. It is a principality. They have a crown prince who is their sovereign. It's a constitutional monarchy, though. They have a democracy, and they have a parliament. But the whole country has fewer people in it than Hearst and Bedford put together. So it has a population of, I think, about 85,000 in the whole nation. They survive on tourism. They do have a ski resort there. And they also have banks that maintain the kind of secrecy that Switzerland does. So the banking sector is an important part of their economy. And believe it or not, they actually make a lot of money selling postage stamps. So, when you've got 85,000 people, your government doesn't require that much money to run, I guess. But I actually got to meet the Crown Prince of Liechtenstein when we were traveling through on a tour bus. We went to a drugstore, and a man stepped out of an Alfa Romeo convertible, very nice little car, but his license plate said Fürst Eins, Prince 1 in German. It's a German-speaking country. And the guy got out and said hello to me and welcomed me to his country, and I said thank him very much. And I looked at the postage stamp I'd just bought, and it had his picture on it. So he was the Crown Prince of Liechtenstein. Anyhow, little amusement there. The Alps, as I said, include also the southern portion of Germany, Bavaria especially in southern Germany. Also, the part of northern Italy includes the Alps. There's a whole region there, beautiful region, called the Tyrol, which is part of Italy. It was terribly fought over between the Italians and Austrians in World War I, but today it houses Italy's finest ski resorts. The major city in Alpine Italy is Turin. You might have heard of the Shroud of Turin. Well, that's where it's located. It's an industrial city, though, actually. It's not a lovely medieval city. Most of the medieval stuff has been overrun with nasty factories and the like. It's a very gritty industrial city, kind of like Detroit in the United States, Turin. But also the Alps extend westward into France. The part of France that is Alpine includes Savoy and part of Provence. So southeastern France is also Alpine terrain. The Winter Olympics have been held, I think, 3 times in the ski resorts of the French Alps. Legendary ski resorts there as well. And then if you go to the other side of the Alps, to the southeast of Austria, you'll find the last of the Alpine countries, Slovenia. Slovenia is a Slavic country. It's not a very big place. Austria is about the size of South Carolina. Slovenia is about the size of Connecticut. The Slovenes, very welcoming people. I got to travel there back when I was 17. Nice, very beautiful towns. They have the largest cave in Europe in Slovenia, Postojna Jama, which you can take an absolutely terrifying train ride down into. But it was worth it. It was a very interesting cave. But Slovenia was part of Yugoslavia from 1919 until 1990, when it broke into pieces. Yugoslavia erupted into violence, terrible ethnic violence between the Serbs and the Croats and the Bosnians in what had been the united country Yugoslavia, politically united but ethnically very divided. And in 1990, that fell apart. But the Slovenes escaped the violence because it was an Alpine country. Like I said, you don't want to have to fight in the Alps. And the Croats, who actually thought about invading and trying to take them over, they literally blocked the roads with, tractors and the like, and took up position with their rifles. And the Croats thought better than trying to fight people who are living in the mountains. That's a bad idea. Always take the high ground first, rule of defensive warfare. The Croats knew that, and the Slovenes had the high ground. So they gave up, and Slovenia got its independence from Yugoslavia, and there was no fighting, I don't think, of any kind in Slovenia during that horrible period of the breakup of Yugoslavia. We'll talk more about that later in another lecture. So the Alpine regions, southeastern France, the Savoy, and part of Provence in France, the whole of Switzerland, the whole of Austria, the whole of Slovenia, that's the Alps, but also the southernmost portions of Germany, the northernmost portions of Italy. So I think that concludes our discussion of the Alpine countries. Thank you.